I'm attempting to become the greatest manager of all time by completing the Glory Hunter Challenge. We have to win Europe's top 5 domestic leagues and top cup competitions, as well as all 3 UEFA trophies within 20 seasons. Luckily, I can choose where we start, but we can only win each competition with a team that's never won it before. So we can forget about taking over teams like Liverpool, Barca and PSG. But I think I have found the perfect club. We're starting our journey with RB Leipzig. They have a ton of money, some of the best young players in the Bundesliga, and crucially, they've never won the league title or a UEFA trophy before. But there's a reason they've never won the Bundesliga, and Bayern Munich made that brutally clear on day one. We travelled to Munich on the opening day and got humiliated. Bayern have won 12 of the last 13 Bundesligas, and they thrashed us 5-0 to remind us that if we're going to topple them, it's going to take a special season. We need to build a world-class team, and fast. So I sent the scouts far and wide to find some talent to sign in January. In the meantime, we got over the Bayern loss with youngster Antonio Nusa scoring a brace against Heidenheim as we won 3-1. And it turns out the 20-year-old left winger was having a breakout season. He scored the game's only goal against Wolfsburg and Hoffenheim for 6 important points. He also got the winner in a 2-1 win over title rivals Bayer Leverkusen. However, he didn't turn up against the league's other big teams. We lost 2-0 away at Dortmund, 2-1 at home against Eintracht Frankfurt, as well as suffering defeats to Mainz and Mönchengladbach. But because Dortmund, Mainz and Bayern love drawing so much, we're top of the table by a point at the winter break. If we can pull this off, we'll have won one of the hardest trophies in Season 1. That's a game changer. It gives us more freedom, more time, and momentum going into next season's Champions League. Another reason I chose Leipzig is because they have no European football this season, so we won't get distracted. We made the most of that in January as we welcomed Bayern Munich, who have played 8 Champions League games and beat an exhausted Bayern 3-1 to keep ourselves firmly on top of the table. But to secure the title, we're going to have to bring in some reinforcements. So thankfully, the scouts have delivered. They found 18-year-old Ayoub Bouadi, an incredibly talented midfielder who will slot straight into our first team. And best of all, we only paid Lille 7.5 million, an absolute bargain. However, he didn't transform the team in the way that we expected him to, because now it was our turn to draw matches. Heidenheim, Augsburg, Werder Bremen and Hoffenheim were all games where we dropped points and positions in the table. With 7 games to go, Bayern have clawed their way back on top, and we couldn't deal with the pressure. A 2-1 loss to Bremen was then followed up with a draw against Gladbach. That's 5 important points dropped. Nusa got us back to winning ways briefly as he scored past Union Berlin and Augsburg, but it was too little, too late. A 1-1 draw with Bayer Leverkusen sealed our fate. With 2 games to go, Bayern clinched the title and we'd let it slip. Now we're 1 season down and we've got 0 trophies to show for it. What's worse is that we've also made the DFB Pokal final and have a chance to get revenge over Bayern. But RB Leipzig have already won the DFB Pokal twice in real life. We thrashed Bayern 3-0 to lift the cup. The players celebrated and the fans went wild, but to me, it meant absolutely nothing. Remember, we can only win each trophy with a team that's never won it before, so this doesn't count. We're going to have to come back and do this all again with a different team further down the line. To become champions, we need a new striker, goalkeeper and a few backups. But we only have 44 million to spend, so this has to be a careful balancing act. We looked outside the box for a goalkeeper, and we found Marvin Keller. He was playing for young boys in Switzerland, looked absolutely superb, and cost us just 13 million. We then saw that Joshua Zirkzee was on the Manchester United transfer list for just £10 million, so we've taken a gamble on him. But maybe we have jumped the gun here. Right after sealing those signings, Raum and Baku left the club, handing us a small fortune. To replace Raum, we may have overpaid for left-back Nathaniel Brown, but both Tijani Reinders and Billy Gilmer were transfer listed at their clubs, so we've brought them in for an absolute steal. And now the squad looks so much stronger than last season. So much stronger, I think we can mount a title challenge and a Champions League challenge. This season, we started the Bundesliga with a bang. We beat Hoffenheim 3-0, Köln 4-0 and Mainz 3-0, with Zirkzee and Reinders scoring 2 goals each. In fact, we won our first 8 games of the season before we were finally halted by Dortmund, but even then, that was just a draw. With the new signings in the team, we looked like a much better side, and the gambles that we took, like signing Xerxes, were paying off big time. But there were some cracks starting to appear. We lost to Frankfurt and Borussia Mönchengladbach, showing that we aren't impossible to beat. Despite that, we're 2 points clear at the top, ahead of the unbeaten Dortmund, whilst Bayern Munich are trailing 8 points behind. So whilst things are going superbly domestically, in Europe, we look lost. Losses to PSG and Newcastle, followed up with draws to Sparta Prague and Werder Glimt. It was like we'd forgotten how to play football. With 2 games to go in the league phase, we're 26th in the table, and as it stands, we aren't even making the knockout rounds. A 1-1 draw with Atletico Madrid was not going to be enough to save us. But thankfully, an incredible 4-1 win at home against Juventus gave us the points we need to sneak into the knockout rounds by the skin of our teeth. Maybe, just maybe, we can pull off a miracle and go on a fairy tale run through the knockouts. Or we could get thrashed by Napoli, who ended our European dreams. But it means we can now put all our attention into the Bundesliga. We now have a 7-point lead at the top, thanks to Dortmund losing their first game of the season and drawing with Hamburg. Things only got better for us when we beat Borussia Dortmund 1-0, thanks to an 83rd minute strike from Reinders. Then Xerxes led us to an incredible 4-0 win against Bayern Munich, officially dumping the Bavarians out of the title race. The 2 attackers then combined against Union Berlin to put us in an incredible position. With 3 games to go, we have a 7-point lead over the now 2nd place Frankfurt. If we can beat Borussia Mönchengladbach in our next match, the title will be ours. But we couldn't take our chances in the first half, and we're heading into the break at 0-0. So I gave the lads a piece of my mind and took Xerxes off for Romelu. But even he wasn't making the difference, as he skied his effort in the 64th minute and had his free kick that was destined for the top corner, saved with 20 minutes to go. Maybe we just aren't meant to win the title. Unless we make a final change. So on comes Nusa. And moments after bringing on the left winger, he skips past his man and slots home a shot from the tightest of angles to give us the lead and deliver RB Leipzig their first Bundesliga title. 1 trophy down and 12 more to win. And now we have a huge dilemma on our hands. We can either stay at Leipzig and try and win the Champions League next season, or I can resign and look for a new job. Now I am thinking about moving away. I think we're going to have a better chance of winning the Champions League towards the end of the challenge. I'm kind of waiting for someone like Millwall to become a Premier League giant, and then we can come in and help them win their first ever Champions League. But given just how horrendous the managerial vacancy screen is in FM26, I'm going to see how we do in next season's league phase before I decide to move on. With 46 million to spend, we have to improve our backline and add some attacking depth after selling Baumgartner and Elmas. So we took 2 players from our sister club, Red Bull Salzburg, as well as signing Malik Tior and Fazer Layev. Thanks to the new lads, we did play better in the Champions League. But 2 wins and 2 draws in our first 4 matches doesn't give me we're winning the whole thing vibes. So instead I've kept my eye on the job market, and I think I found a really promising project. Last season, Sassuolo finished 5th in Serie A, but this season, things aren't going well. They sacked manager Fabio Grosso a week ago, and I've got a coach in charge right now temporarily. They're also doing really well in this season's Europa League, which of course they've never won before. But crucially, they've also never won Serie A or Coppa Italia. So there's so much scope to stick with this team for a while to tick off a few trophies. So obviously, I applied for the job. Whilst I waited for them to get back to me, we lost 1-0 to Atletico Madrid. Honestly, it made leaving feel like the only option. So thankfully, Sassuolo offered me an interview. Their first concern was that I can't speak Italian. Little do they know, I learnt all the Italian that I need from Assassin's Creed. Resquiet cat in pace. So I told them it won't be hard. They're also worried I've never managed in Italy before, but having won 2 trophies in 2 seasons in Germany, my standing in the game should quell any concerns. Then they wanted to know if I could take the club to the next level. I don't know what the next level actually is, but I told them my reputation speaks for myself. And the bravado worked, because they offered me the job just a week later. But am I doing the right thing? If we stay in Leipzig, we could win the Champions League this season. If we leave, we're betting on a struggling club that has no history of winning anything. If we're going to complete Glory Hunter with teams that have never won trophies before, then we have to take a gamble like this early doors. So we're joining Sassuolo and we're going to try and win it all. But first, we need to understand this team. They're currently 16th in Serie A. A big reason for their decline is because talisman Andrea Pinamonti has only scored 3 Serie A goals this season, and he's the club's top scorer. The current system fits the tactic that we mastered at Leipzig, but I think going forwards we'll have to recruit for a more underdog formation if we want quick success. To win games, we need Pinamonti to score goals, and he did that in Europe. He put 2 past Strasbourg and 1 past Karabag to secure us a top 8 finish and qualify straight for the round of 16. But in Serie A, we couldn't get him firing. As a result, I was struggling to stop the team from losing games. We lost to top of the table Napoli, mid-table Lazio and relegation-threatened Lecce. By early February, I've taken the club from 16th to 16th. So let's focus on the Europa League instead. In the round of 16, we were drawn against Cluj. Thanks to Josh Doig scoring and getting a couple of assists, we comfortably beat the side from Romania. In the quarterfinals, we were drawn against Bournemouth. Pinamonti was in fine form, scoring in the first leg at home and then twice on the south coast of England in the second leg to help us win 6-2 on aggregate and make the semi-finals. But Manchester United in the semis was tough. Despite battling hard, we lost the first leg at home 2-1, and then 90 minutes into the second leg, an obvious shove on Cunha resulted in a penalty, which Mount scored. United then parked the bus and we lost 3-1 on aggregate. This was an incredible chance for us to win the Europa League early doors, and we've blown it. And we aren't going to get another chance next season. In Serie A, we limped to 16th place, and you don't get a European spot for that. But what if there was another way to qualify for Europe? When I joined Sassuolo, they'd reached the Coppa Italia quarterfinals. I helped them beat Genoa 1-0, and then get past Roma in the semi-finals thanks to a Berardi penalty. So if we can beat Fiorentina in the final, we'll add another trophy to the cabinet and get back into the Europa League. We seemed really up for it. Just 7 minutes in, we came so close to opening up the scoring. But when we couldn't capitalise on our early dominance, Moise Kean was put through with a ball over the top, and he was never going to miss the one-on-one opportunity. We tried desperately to get back on level terms, but we just couldn't get the ball on target, let alone in the back of the net. Things only got worse when 30 seconds into the second half, Moise Kean doubled Fiorentina's lead, and moments later, Pinamonti missed a golden opportunity. The game was then lost when Josh Doig gave away a penalty and Kean completed his hat-trick. Fiorentina win the cup, and we walk off the pitch empty-handed. I feel like we are at rock bottom. I mean, there has to be a good team here. You don't just reach the Europa League semi-finals and the final of Coppa Italia if you're rubbish. Something inside me says there's got to be some radical change. The good news is I know exactly what has to change. The bad news is we only have £7 million to do it. If we don't pull off something special in this transfer window, this whole challenge could fall apart. We have 5 players on insane wages. Josh Doig is good, but £120,000 a week is mental. And I don't care if Berardi has spent 19 seasons at the club, we can't have a bench warmer on £92,000 a week. So the spine of the team has to go. We have no choice. We need cash to rebuild the team. If we don't, we are setting ourselves back years. So I was able to sell 4 of the 5 top earners at the club. Only Pinamonti remains. But selling is half the battle. If the new boys don't perform, I'm gonna get sacked. We say hello to 12 new faces, 10 of which join permanently as we look to change our formation and shape. The standout signing is bringing Fratesi back to the club after he was let go by Inter Milan at the end of his contract. We've also brought in Lennart Karl on loan. He joins from Man City for the season to start on the right wing. But the player I am most excited about isn't a new signing, it's a promotion. Giovanni Giafuni was lurking in the under-18s, and whilst he might not be the best player in the squad, he plays like the badge is stitched to his skin. If we're going to win games this season, it starts at the back. So we're playing a 5-2-3 with a strong defence that can transition into a quick counter to hurt teams at our pace. And the defence-first approach was yielding results against the top clubs. Pinamonti scored a hat-trick in a 3-1 win over Napoli, whilst Lennart Karl scored a late winner in a 3-2 win against Juventus. Fratesi was also finding his rhythm, as he also scored some important goals in big wins. But it wasn't always plain sailing, and we got it wrong. We lost 4-1 away at Pisa and 6-3 away to Lazio. But despite that, we sit 6th in the table on New Year's Eve, a remarkable turnaround from last season. As we enter the new year, the youngster Giffuni was getting into his stride. He scored a superb goal through a crowd as we beat Fiorentina before tapping in the winner from close range in a 2-1 win away at Inter Milan. Then he was in the right place at the right time to score our first in a massive 5-2 win over Lazio. With Carl, Pinamonti and Fratesi also scoring, we put ourselves into a fantastic position. With 5 games to go, we're 6th in the table. Realistically, we can finish as high as 3rd or as low as 9th. So we have to focus up if we want to secure a spot in a European competition. Even though he won't be here next season, Lennart Carl was determined to get us into Europe with his brace in a 4-2 win against Roma. But we followed that up with a goalless draw against Cagliari before conceding in the 90th minute against Juventus to lose 1-0. However, a goal from Pinamonti secured a massive win against Pisa on the penultimate day of the season. That leaves us on 64 points, tied with AC Milan, Como and Juventus. The final day will decide if we're going to the Champions League, Europa League, Conference League, or miss out entirely. All we need is a draw against Sampdoria, but you know how these things go. However, we're going to have to wait until the next episode to find out our fate. That's right, we're turning this into a mini-series, so subscribe to the channel with notifications on to be the first to know when the next episode of Glory Hunter is released.